From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Happy Monday evening, everybody. Rory Johnston with you here on News Channel 5 Plus. Time for another live edition of OpenLine. We're so glad you're tuning us in tonight on a rainy, wet Monday. Sit back, relax, enjoy this program, and do take part. We call it OpenLine for a reason. As we open our phone lines, we want to hear from you, the viewers. 615-737-PLUS. That's the number. 7587 is for plus. So be sure to dial in, and we welcome a familiar face here, John Harris, the Executive Director of the Tennessee Firearms Association. John, thanks for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
A busy day at his law office, I'm sure, and a busy few days here in Nashville. We were talking during the break. Obviously, the NRA was here for what was the biggest convention Nashville has ever seen, with the new Music City Center, like upwards of 70,000 people. Really remarkable event just in general to have that here in Nashville.
Oh, it is. It was here, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think they said that this is the second largest convention they've had in their history. Mm-hmm. And it's fantastic that it was able to be brought here and planned so far in advance. And we found out, I guess, where Nashville needs to fine-tune some things, like in terms of hotels and traffic.
Yeah, I made the mistake of popping in downtown to see some friends Saturday night late, and I thought, well, maybe a lot of traffic, a lot of foot traffic, a lot of cars, and yeah, obviously new hotels are coming. We've got to catch up on that. We want to hear from you, though, because we're also going to talk about what's happening up at the state legislature tonight. Just earlier on News Channel 5, we heard from our beat reporter, Mark Bellinger, who's up on the Hill throughout the General Assembly here, the legislature, and he talked a little bit about guns and parks. And where we are with that. What do you know about it?
Well, the guns and parks issue is really now an old one that dates back to at least 2008, when the original bill would have addressed this, and we've never had the negotiations that we've had for the last 7 years. And what has happened this year is the House and the Senate have passed the same basic bill, but they've put some different amendments on it in both houses.
Right.
And in particular, that Senate amendment that allows people to carry who have permits in the Capitol.
Right.
And that's created a lot of conflict. I understand the Senate did not agree to strip that off, which everybody expected.
Right.
And so it's going to a conference committee
to
here soon.
Hammer this out.
Hammer it out.
Now, that was added by a Democrat, Jeff Yarborough,
oh, yeah.
who said, I'm doing this to make a point. He made a point. I mean, it's caused a little bit of a ripple in this. So how do people answer to that?
Well, it's I think the right thing to do, and Senator Yarborough made a good point, is if we're going to force this on local governments that don't like it, why are we closing the General Assembly and the Capitol to the public? Mm-hmm. Because over 11 states already allow permit holders to have their weapons in their state capitals, including Texas and Virginia. And of those states, we don't have any problems being reported of permit holders carrying weapons on the Capitol grounds. And it's interesting that here, although I can't name names, it's well known that we have a number of legislators who have no exception for carrying on the Capitol that are already doing it in violation of the law. So it's, let's get honest about it and open it up.
Mm-hmm. All right, and we've opened up our phone line, 737-PLUS. If you'd like to call in, we're going to talk about guns and parks, guns and parking lots, all sorts of issues up on the Hill. 737-PLUS is the phone number. So what about this argument, John, that, this measure has been a bit controversial for municipalities, local municipalities, cities, that really don't want the state to tell them what to do. They want the ability to opt out of this law.
All right.
But this, obviously this makes it clear to counties and cities that's not going to be the case, that this is going to supersede, right?
Well, and I think that's a necessary move that we need to follow. One thing that people, I think, need to understand, and particularly people in local government, is unlike the relationship between the states and the federal government, where the states are independent and autonomous sovereign entities, Tennessee law is clear that all of the states, even all the counties, are just mere subdivisions of the state. Mm-hmm. And the state can set up new cities, they can merge cities, they can do whatever they want to do. because the cities are just local instrumentalities. And so this concern about, well, we need to manage the issue about carrying guns in parks locally. The problem with that is it's not like setting a speed limit or other types of local regulation, because this guns in parks issue creates an enormous amount of confusion, and it results in criminal charges that can be pretty substantial against individuals who may or may not know the difference between a local park and a state park. And all the state parks have been open since '08.
Right. Yeah, there is the, you know, I've heard the argument of, especially Republicans who talk a lot about, we don't want Washington in our business,
right,
telling us what to do. And isn't this a similar, if you're a town, why is Nashville, the folks up on the hill, telling us what to do? Let us manage our own
right
here locally.
And the big difference is, like I said, is that the cities and the counties are under full control of state government, where the relationship between the state and Washington is entirely the inverse.
So with a broad stroke then, why not say it's one or the other? Either we're going to allow guns in all these parks or permit holders, or not. Why not?
Well, not was what we had for a long time.
Yeah.
And then they realized that, hey, the public owns the parks. Mm-hmm. People are out there. Law enforcement really can't provide safety and security for hikers, campers, all this kind of stuff. And so we went down the experiment starting in '08 of allowing permit holders to carry their weapons in the parks. And we've not had any problems. And under the 2008 law, the default rule was local parks are going to be open, and the counties or the cities had to affirmatively act to close them. And if you listen to the debates back in 2008, the expectation was that in doing that, local governments would be acting with a preference, because the state had established it, to leaving the parks open and only closing the ones that really had a security issue that needed to be closed, like something that's nothing more than a little ballpark. And what we saw, unfortunately, across the state is, particularly in the larger communities, is the local governments tended to just close all the parks without looking at the nuances between a park like Percy Warner or Beeman, where people jog. You know, it's a very large, diverse park, as contrasted with maybe some of your smaller parks that have a much higher density level, like Centennial.
Okay, let's go to the phones. Brett has called in. Hi, Brett. Thanks for calling in.
Hello, Roy. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
My question about the guns in the park, it seems to me like what he's saying is true, that the parks belong to the public, and the government can't discriminate against people who want to carry a gun on a public park. Now, this is kind of reminiscent of some laws that we've just had, that Indiana just passed, about these gay issues and this kind of thing, where that's a private thing, and that's something totally different than a public thing where the government is going to be discriminating against people who are taxpayers. So to me, it doesn't have any legs to stand on constitutionally. I'll hang up and let him say whatever he wants to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
And Brett makes a good point. There's this entire constitutional element to the argument. But what we have seen is sometimes you get into something like the parks debate, and the decision is not made as a practical matter on the Constitution. It's made upon political correctness. It's made upon powers of local government to influence the delegation from a particular city or county serving in the General Assembly. And so where you end up on this is what do you do? And should the counties have taken the lead of the state government back in '08 and said, okay, yeah, your greenways, like the one that runs from Shelby Bottoms out through Donaldson, we don't need to really close that because it's not a high-density activity, but there is a need for safety and security. Beeman Park, which is almost predominantly rural, it's closed and it really shouldn't be. And we've actually seen across the state, some counties like Montgomery and Clarksville area, they've actually reversed their system, and typically when you see the reversals, they almost always move towards opening the park to the permit holders. And the other thing I think the listeners need to understand is none of this legislation creates just gun-enabled zone, it's still limited to permit holders, the way this is written. So you've got people that have gone through the background checks and have an excellent history in terms of being responsible gun owners.
All right, we want to hear from you. Brett called in, and you can call in as well at 737+. We'll take our first break and continue on this Monday night open line as we talk about gun laws and gun issues with John Harris. Stay with us.